Hello and welcome to the sixth session of this weekly mini-series. This week's topic on attitude and motivation began in a Zoom discussion this past week with the students at Pittsburgh Career Institute. Thanks for the inspiration. Attitudes are an accumulation of emotional history and are built based on how we felt about those experiences. Positive or negative, helpful or not, our attitudes were established in the moment of the experience. All those experiences influence our attitudes, and every time we revisit the memory with the same emotion, we strengthen those neural pathways. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the attitude resulting from the experience. Attitude, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is a mental position, feeling, or emotion toward a fact or state. If we are leaning toward, we call that positive, helpful, or optimistic. If we are leaning away, we call that negative, unhelpful, or pessimistic. Therefore, attitude has everything to do with the release of our potential due to the influence from those past experiences and the resulting attitudes. A positive attitude doesn't necessarily constitute good, but it does constitute leaning toward. And a negative attitude doesn't necessarily constitute bad, but it does constitute leaning away. Why is this important? Because attitudes determine what we let ourselves do and how far we let ourselves look ahead. But those attitudes, positive or negative, don't show up until we set a goal. In order to better understand why attitude has everything to do with the release of our potential, we must make the connection between our attitude and its relationship to our motivation. If attitude represents our feeling or emotion toward a state of mind or a fact, then it precedes motive, which is something that causes a person to act. Therefore, our attitude toward a goal drives our motivation to achieve it or stay the same. If the goal is strong enough, important enough, of enough value to us, we're motivated to act. But if it is not, we don't. We either lean toward or away from the goal, depending on our attitude. A positive attitude toward a goal causes motivation to act, triggers energy, creativity to do the work and achieve the goal. A negative attitude toward a goal results in demotivation and causes procrastination and a creative avoidance. And somehow the work either doesn't get done to achieve the goal, or it does, but it's not at our best. Motivation is two primary sources. Either it comes from inside, known as intrinsic motivation, or outside, known as extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, or motivation driven by forces outside of us, is artificial and typically not useful for long. It's often characterized by the carrot or the stick. The carrot represents a form of extrinsic motivation by reward. Our motivation to do a task or complete a job is incentivized. I don't particularly like my job, but I get paid for doing it, so I get it done. The stick is a form of motivation that's also driven from outside. But the stick is motivation through avoiding punishment. I don't enjoy attending my daily Zoom check-in, but I don't want to have to explain why, or I don't want to worse, lose my job. So I log in, but I won't participate. It's really hard to maintain that type of motivation because we only want to avoid punishment. External motivation can help, especially in the short term. But intrinsic motivation, which is the drive and the energy released from inside to perform a task, is much more of a long-term solution. Intrinsic motivation is value-driven. By seeing the value in what we choose to, want to, something that is driven from within. It's my idea. This is why I choose to do it. So we need to figure out the why we want to achieve the goal in the first place. All of our goals need to be established on a want to, choose to, like it, love it, it's my idea basis, or we're going to need to rely on extrinsic motivators with that short-term shelf life. Rewards are nice in the short term. I'll do the job because they pay me. But what happens when you decide they don't pay you enough, or you feel that you deserve more than a colleague? Punishment also works in the short term. Do this or else, and the or else is something negative that'll happen if you don't do it. But we typically get tired of being bullied, and so it leads to resentment or cutting corners, because who wants to be coerced into doing something? When we feel pushed, we push back. We need to have enough self-awareness that when we are forcing ourselves to do something, we can step back and remind ourselves why we choose to do it. What benefit is there for me, for my family? If not, when I feel pushed against my will, we'll subconsciously push back. We don't push back physically. We push back through procrastination, slowing down, doing slovenly work, or finding something else to do altogether. But contrast that with approach with behavior sparked by intrinsic motivation, when the reward is the activity itself, learning, acquiring new skills, simply doing your best, or finding the value for you and your family. Then there's no shortcuts. It's easy to stay focused and keep going. When we begin to live our lives on a want to, choose to, like it, love it basis, we stop forcing ourselves to do things, and surprisingly become more accountable and more responsible for our own good and the good of those around us. Author Niall Cassidy, in his book, The Art of Influencing Anyone, refers to a research study done in a swimming pool. Researchers asked people about their water-saving habits, their attitude. As most people wanted to be painted in a positive picture for themselves, they stated that saving water was important to them. Following this, the researchers secretly timed how long people showered after swimming, their actual behavior. Those who had been asked about their habits took significantly less time in the shower. By simply thinking of the value of water conservation, pool-goers influenced their own attitude, which then released the motivation to adjust their behavior. They were not told to take a shorter shower or something bad would happen. They weren't paid to take a shorter shower. They were just simply asked, which triggered their thought, which influenced their action. You can have the skills, you can have the knowledge, but your emotions, your attitude towards each goal in front of you will either allow you to release your skill level closer to your actual potential, or it'll cause you to freeze and inhibit the release of your skill. I guess the cliche, your attitude determines your altitude, really has some merit. Be well and stay healthy.